If you're listening on podcast, be sure to tune in to our YouTube channel on YouTube at Wild and Weird WV.
Welcome to Wild and Weird Radio, a Wild and Weird West Virginia podcast.
Welcome back to Wild and Weird Radio, everybody. This show is put together very, very, very old school style because we are going back to season 1 and taking a look at Pascagoula Abduction through a modern disclosure lens. So buckle up. This one's going to be a trip because there's a lot of stuff that we covered in the first episode that makes a whole lot more sense now after we've gotten some information in the last year or so. But before we go into that, Ron, how's your week been, man?
Oh, it's been great. I think it always made sense. It's all aliens.
Yeah, things are going good. Things are going really good. I know on my end, it's been hectic and busy, but good.
Yep, it's all good.
I can't wait. Show season is getting ready to fire up. I'm getting the studio cleaned up down here, getting ready to go into production mode.
Got some new paintings on the table in there. They're looking pretty good. Got some new stuff coming. It's gonna be really fun time out there. Hope we get to see some of you folks out there on the road this year. That'll be awesome.
Oh yeah. Especially we've been announced we're going to be at the Monster Fest doing a workshop. We were just going to be guests, but now Seth has put us to work at this workshop for you guys. We're going to be doing Bridging the Gap, data collection and techniques in a world of high strangeness. We're going to be showing you guys what all equipment we take out with us on a research outing. We're also going to be going over how that equipment works and what we use it for. It's going to be a good time. Can't wait to catch you guys out there in July. Going to be great. Hang out with us here, though, coming up in a little over a month. We're going to be at OBC.
Yeah, that's right. That's
OBC coming up on May 4th. It's going to be a good time. Can't wait to see you guys there. That's always one of our favorite shows. We get to catch you guys and catch up with everybody and just, it's like a family reunion. You know how those go.
It's going to be fun.
So if you all are listening to us, remember, go ahead, smash that subscribe button, hit that like button like it owes you money. And that way you can stay up to date on everything that we are doing over here at Wild and Weird Radio and the West Virginia High Strangers Collective, because there's going to be some major updates coming soon that you definitely want to be on the cutting edge for when they get dropped.
Yeah, some cool stuff. And you made it there, made a good point. Everybody, please do take the time to like, share, subscribe, and on the YouTube channel there, the official one, because we have good stuff coming up there. And leave a comment. We usually get back to you unless you're a troll. We don't get back to trolls. Just letting you know. Don't waste your time. It won't work. You can say whatever you want. You can heckle us all you want. It's not gonna work. And you'll probably get banned. I'll be honest with you. But aside from that, if you got any real questions or comments or even suggestions, real suggestions, leave them. And we'll probably get back to you, honestly. Or you might just find out that we might do what you tell us to do, because that happens too.
That does. And if you've had a sighting or you want to share a story with us, and it might be a little bit too long to fit in the YouTube comment section, or might be a little bit too long to fit in the Facebook group or Instagram group, because we're shooting stuff over there as well. You can always.
You're afraid the Men in Black are watching.
That's true. Because our show gets hijacked from time to time at this point. Now, if you've been hanging out with us on our live, you will know that. And it's getting worse. It's only getting worse. So if you want to keep that under wraps and secret, you can shoot that over to us at wildandweirdwv@gmail.com. And we'll get back with you that way as well, because that's our email. Wild and Weird WV. Guess what that also is? Our YouTube and our website, because we thought ahead and like to keep it simple.
What a coincidence.
right?
It's amazing. You would think it was planned.
Do we have any news?
I mean, there's no real news. There's news we could talk about, but it's not what I would call newsworthy news.
Right. Right. I'm with you.
The biggest news I think is they recently did this. They launched the disclosure movement that's kind of taken place. They finally got that off the ground, and that looks like it's going to be pretty cool. There's a lot of interesting things that are going on with that. They're trying to utilize, organize these chapters and utilize as much resources as they can. You can actually, go on and say, yeah, I want to host, one of the rallies, or I want to do this, or, volunteer basically. So they're organizing, like really organizing. And it's pretty cool. I got to be honest with you. It's never been done before. This is something very, very, very different. We're in a very different world. Disclosures happen. This is a post-disclosure world. So
that's exactly what this is. And that's what this episode is actually about. So let's kick this off. All right. Let's go straight into it from here. We're talking about the Pascagoula abduction. That's what it's most famously known as. And it involved two men, Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker. Now, if you want a full detailed, very detail-oriented episode, go back and listen to Wrong Turn at Pascagoula. It's in season 1 of Wild and Weird Radio.
Audio only.
And it is audio only. But I'm going to give you kind of a Cliff Notes version just to get you caught up, because then we're going to go into some of the stuff that we know now and what this account could have translated into with what we know today, instead of looking at it as just a good story. All right. So it was October 11th of 1973. Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker were fishing. They were out on a pier off the west bank of the Pascagoula River there in Mississippi. And they heard this like whizzing, mechanical, whirling sound. And they saw 2 flashing blue lights, emphasis on flashing blue lights. And they observed an oval object. Now, this oval object was shaped like an oval. Think kind of like an egg. I've seen it drawn as an egg. I've seen it drawn as kind of like instead of the pointy-ended saucer, like a rounded-end saucer.
Like a football.
Cigar, but shorter. And this object was around 30 to 40 feet across and stood from floor to ceiling on an exterior view. I say exterior view because of some other stuff we're going to bring up later that you've probably heard us talk about. From floor to ceiling is only 8 to 10 feet is their estimation. Now, Parker and Hickson claim that they were taken aboard this craft by these robotic kind of alien looking things. They had slits for mouths. They didn't have visible eyes, but they also had these crab-like pincers. And when they took them onto the craft, they were paralyzed, but conscious. So they knew everything that was going on. They were fully aware of their surroundings, but they couldn't move. Similar to what people describe with sleep paralysis, but these guys were fishing. They weren't dozing off on the side of the riverbank. Now, they say that these beings, now called non-human intelligence, took them aboard the object and then subjected them to a litany of examinations.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
right. It's typical abduction type experience, basically. It would become that, right?
It would become that. That's the way that, when you go through all these accounts, especially from that era, that is very much what these abduction encounters seem like.
Mm-hmm.
Having these examinations and being poked and prodded at. You get a lot of variety as to how they were poked and prodded to, depending on which stories you're reading. But with these 2 gentlemen, they were there, they were fishing, and they saw this thing. Now, Ron, when you read this shortened version or hear this shortened version of this account, when you hear blue blinking lights, What's the first thing that comes to mind?
I mean, I'm thinking orbs, but that's just me because they're blue, and that's typically what they're being described as at this point on nearly every account that we get. It's either
Right.
blue, white, or white blue, but
Or this orange.
yeah, exactly.
Now, with those blue, reading this now, you hear orbs, you either see the blue lights, blue blinking lights, and you think orbs. I'm almost putting a separation in here that they saw the blue orbs and then this craft comes into scene.
Right.
Because at first, the first time I read this account, I'm reading, I'm like, oh man, so here's a UFO with blinking blue lights on it. Or it's blinking blue lights. It's got some kind of light on it. Because you know how some of the Withville UFO, triangle UFOs had those orange pots where they had those orange lights or red lights glowing on them. I thought the same thing. This just had blue. But now it's kind of like, well, here's orbs. And then you have a craft coming in behind it.
It's very interesting because a lot of these older cases we look at, you know, how Aurednik would have described those close encounters of the first, second, and third. But before that, there was nocturnal lights and daylight discs. And a lot of your nocturnal lights literally may not have been attached to crafts at all.
Right.
You know, they may not have been attached to crafts at all. The thing that I saw, for example, when, that started the whole thing back in the mid 70s, I didn't see a flying saucer. I saw a bright orange light in the sky. That's why we pulled over. It was a bright orange orb. It was a light. And you hear that with a lot of these sightings now. It's not that you're seeing a flying saucer or a structured craft. It's a massive light or a plasma, or it's multiple lights. And then something weird happens, right?
Yeah.
So you have to wonder, how does that work?
Now, we have to keep in mind, we've got to remember, in this case, it was investigated by two gentlemen who are famous in the UFO community, which is Philip J. Klass and Joe Nickell.
Well, you have to remember Philip J. Klass, Mr. Skeptic Extreme.
Yes.
It's important that people understand, because a lot of people give him like these massive kudos that he's this, oh, he did this and he did this for them and for that. And they mistake him for some government official. He had no government office tie whatsoever. He was a what was he? American aviation and aerospace journalist, I believe.
Yeah, he was American aviation
Isn't that
journalist.
right?
That was his job.
Yeah, that's right. He wrote for American aviation, but that's it. That's all. And he wanted to, for whatever reason, debunk UFOs. It made him happy.
Yeah.
He was probably paid. Let's be real.
Very likely, especially during this era.
Yeah.
And so Klass said that he discovered many discrepancies, mainly in Hickson's story. One of his biggest gripes was that Hickson refused outright to take any kind of polygraph over and over and over.
Yeah.
And he because of that, made up in his mind that this whole thing had to have been a hoax, because why would you reject a polygraph if this was a real event? Well, maybe because polygraphs can be easily faked.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. And
there's so many ways to get around a polygraph that it's not funny.
Yeah. And when he takes that polygraph, he's going to have to sign a waiver that says the results of this polygraph, pretty much verify that this is what happened, even though, like you said, it may not be an actual thing. So,
well, that's it's polygraph.
Yeah.
There's a reason that, they don't necessarily take them in full credit in the court of law anymore.
That's right.
Now, the next thing, Joe Nickell, when he was investigating this, he had taken issues with Hickson.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hickson was, the target of this, because he basically was saying that he wasn't telling the truth. and that Parker couldn't corroborate it because Parker was basically being very suggestible, is how he was saying it, because Parker originally claimed that he passed out at the beginning of the experience and then woke up after it was over, and that Hickson kind of just guided him through, well, this is what happened to us. And Parker was like, oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And that was Nichols' analysis of this. And so, you're dealing with a classic abduction case with classic debunkers going out after it, classic skeptics and debunkers. And of course you're going to have that kind of rundown. Now, what's even better is that Pascagoula Abduction is another one of the Wikipedia pages.
Oh yeah.
Did you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's another one of the Wikipedia pages that had been heavily edited out and a lot of the information taken out. The only stuff that was left in are the accounts by Nichols and by Class, and basically disparaging the whole case.
And the stuff that basically was corroborated by the sheriff and the office, because that's on public record now.
Oh yeah, and well, not just that, but the stuff from the sheriff, you can actually still go listen to that radio recording.
Yeah.
And when we look at this through today's lens, we've got possible blue shift, right?
I'm not sure what it was. There was never any, as far as I could tell, I never came across anything about measurable radiation. So, was it true blue shift? I don't know.
Or was it blue? It could have just been blue orbs. Those blue,
right,
orbs.
Right.
Could have been that.
Could have been that.
And then you've got the instance of this being a contact with non-human intelligence.
You do have that.
And that they were, examined. What do you make now today, looking through some of the information that's come out from the disclosure information that's been released by the government, and some of the stuff that's been released now? And because Pascagoula was mentioned by what's his name? Gary Nolan. That account was brought up in one of the interviews with Gary Nolan. And he referenced it. He glazed over it. He didn't go in depth, but he glazed over it as using it as a contactee case.
Well, there's a lot of those. I mean, honestly, and this whole post-disclosure thing makes us go back and look at a lot of these cases we thought we knew everything about, like Travis Walton, for example.
Right.
These things start to make sense after we learn about, biological effects on humans, tissue, etc., EM effects, things like that. When you look at it, and one of the more important things about Pascagoula to me was the fact that, was it a couple of years ago, those tapes came out, like you were talking about.
Yes.
And those tapes were recordings that were taken without either Parker or Hickson knowing about it. And the sheriff at the time said, I don't believe them. I think they're lying. And then after he heard those tapes, he was just like, they're telling the truth, because they're talking about stuff. They're scared to death, candidly. They even make a point to say something like, they're going to come get us if we talk, we report this. We don't need to talk to the sheriffs. We don't need to talk to the officers anymore. We need to just go home. I'm going to talk to my doctor. I'm going to get some nerve pills so I can just get back to normal, basically.
Yeah.
You don't say stuff like that when you don't know that you're being recorded, if you're just trying to seek publicity, right?
Right.
It'd be different if there's a camera over here in the corner and you could see it. And you'd
because that's ultimately what Class was saying, was that Hickson was after publicity. That's all he was doing this for. This was like a big publicity stunt.
Obviously not. If he were, then he would have sought it a little differently. Did he go out and talk about it afterwards? Yes, he did. And there's nothing wrong with that. We say this to this day. One of the worst things that people like Class did to people was to make them feel substandard. They made any contactee feel like they were substandard or crazy. They wanted to paint that picture. They did a very good job. They did a very good job of literally covering up everything out there that they could for years and years and years. And now we are in this post-disclosure world where the lies have pretty much surfaced to the top. It's caused this rift down the middle of the believers and the non-believers. I don't know which one's more dangerous, to be honest with you. I mean, I've seen some stuff from the believers camp that's just like, man, what? And then I've heard, of course, the skeptic side or the debunker side, and they're pretty much pulling from the same thread, to be honest with you.
Well,
you need to be in the middle.
They like to pull on up until here in the last few years has been the fact that many of these experiencers, and they used this to discredit people, was that they had subsequent encounters after the initial. But now looking at this, we have terminology for this now. We have people who have worked at Skinwalker Ranch who experience something and then continue to experience things on and on and on a prolonged with a prolonged effect. You've got people who have contact who continue to have subsequent contact throughout the years. And this is something that, Class tried to use against Hickson, because Hickson came back a year later and claimed that he had additional encounters. And then in 1983, he came out with more, and he published his own first book, the self-published book of UFO Contact at Pascagoula. And, it was after then that he started going out and making these public appearances that you were talking about. But, he claimed having more encounters, which now that's when someone tells us at a table, if we're sitting at a conference and we have somebody come up and they tell us that I had X, Y, and Z happen, the very first thing that Ron asks them every time is, what else have you had happen?
Well, there's always
more.
There's always a trail. This doesn't just happen. Typically, it's very rare for us to get someone to come up and say it's the first time it's ever happened.
Or that it was a one and done.
Yeah, exactly. And when they say that, you have to take it with a grain of salt, because a lot of the data shows that there were other things. Either they don't remember or they don't want to talk about it. So, which is fine. No one's going to push that. But, the thing is to remember is you're not crazy. These things do happen. These encounters absolutely do happen. Whatever they are happening. You are not crazy. Millions of people cannot be having the exact same dream. They cannot be having the exact same delusions. They cannot be seeing the same things. Okay. If they are, then we as a collective species are experiencing something that is far more amazing than alien
or in
contact.
A simulation.
Those
are the two possibilities. We're in a simulation, or we're experiencing something that is far more amazing than what we can wrap our mind around.
Either way, it's pretty much far more amazing than we can wrap our mind around. But you're either dealing with, like you said, a simulation, or you're dealing with some kind of a psychical transfer that we can't even begin to explain at this point. It's not likely, guys. You want to use Occam's razor, as rusty as it may be. Which one of those things seems more plausible to you?
Right.
Some kind of non-human intelligence, living in a computer simulation by some god being that created this program, or B, everyone is having the exact same dreams because they're connected by a psychic thread. Which one of those things seems more plausible?
Yeah.
I
mean, it's to us, it seems kind of abundantly clear which would be more possible.
It's perfectly clear to me. But, I think that we have to look at that, and we have to look at it very seriously, that we are dealing with some kind of non-human intelligence in this case. Now, why did they look the way they did? This would always bothered me. But
the picture of them.
Yeah. The description, the way that he saw these. And now we know why they look like this. They didn't. They probably didn't look like that. That was probably some form of projection. That was probably some kind of a, cerebral manipulation that made them perceive these things to look like this. Because if you remember in the case, there's also a female humanoid type being that's present, right?
And an insectoid type thing.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's think about modern contact / abduction experiences. Even with Whitley Strieber, for example.
Yeah.
Multiple types of beings, but there was always the one that was in charge. There's always that one, that taller one, the one that's usually perceived as a female by a lot of people, that is extremely intelligent and seems to be in control of the whole thing somehow.
Yeah.
What if that's what you're dealing with? What if that is exactly what happened? This was some kind of, they didn't want you to see. I'm going to confuse your brain so much that you are not going to believe no one's going to believe you. You saw wrinkled skinned, weird nosed, pointy eared things.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Tell everybody your story.
Right. No one's going to believe you.
No one's
They're
gonna
all going to
believe you.
laugh at you.
Exactly. Exactly.
And if you guys were to right now, what I want you to do is go ahead and pause this, or if you're watching us on YouTube, keep letting it play in the background and open up another tab, and then type in Pascagoula Abduction and look at some of the photos that pop up. Look at the photo of the two gentlemen sitting in the office while they're giving this account. Those are not men who are like, okay.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there is a level of disturbed on these gentlemen's faces that is not something you can really manufacture. Like I've seen people try, okay? I've seen people try. We've had folks come up and they've tried to manifest this like visceral reactions, but you can tell like, man, you're just a really bad actor.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it happens, but like these guys, they look generally like very disturbed and very uncomfortable.
That's the face of ontological shock.
The kicker with the sheriff's recording that Ron was talking about earlier and that we had mentioned at the beginning, towards the middle of the show there, was not a public recording.
Right.
They didn't know that they were being recorded. Parker only found out a few years ago that they were recorded. Right.
Mm-hmm.
This was not something that ever went out, allegedly. Not even class heard these recordings.
Right. These just came out. Yeah.
They just came out and there they were. And, when you're looking at these two guys, they're very, very unsettled, like literally here's a quote from it. It said, "Jesus Christ, God have mercy. I thought I'd been through enough hell on this earth and now I've got to go through something else like this. But they could have you, they would just have harmed us, son. They could just get us. They had us there. They could have done anything they wanted to, but they didn't hurt me."
Yeah.
Tell me that this is not candid. This is candid. This isn't rehearsed. This isn't scripted. Like he could have come up and said that these entities hurt them. Yeah. And at that point in time, probably would have been more believable than they didn't hurt us.
Mm-hmm.
But they were basically unharmed. And then, what Ron was quoting earlier, his direct quote was like, "I got home and I got to get to bed and I take some nerve pills or something. I got to see my doctor or something. I can't stand this. I'm about to go all to pieces. I can't sleep like this. I'm damn near crazy."
Yeah. Yep.
And when you listen to these tapes, he's not manic. He's very exhausted. He's very frustrated, but he's not crazy. He's not coming from, it's not coming out of a fit of mania. He is very unsettled, but he's got his mind, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And you listen to that tape and you compare it to some of the stuff that, you know, David Grush has talked about with other people and their experiences, and how it has left a you know, irreversible mark on their life, that they are forever altered from that point. This is a reflection of that. You know, you now have government officials who are making statements, or former government officials who are making statements. You've got current standing members of the military who have seen these things in flight, who have flown against these things, and they're unsettled. They're not cool with what they're experiencing because they can't explain it. And that bothers me, you know, because I recognize that these guys are trying their best to rationalize something that is irrational.
Mm-hmm.
And they're being expected to be just like, to blow it off, or to just accept that, oh, this isn't, you know, these are secret government aircraft. They're being told to accept that fact when they know better. They know better. They knew what they've seen. They knew what they experienced. They knew what they were flying with. They might not have actually known what they were flying with, but they knew that it wasn't us. Beyond a shadow of a doubt. I guarantee you ask any of those pilots right now, active duty or discharge, they're going to know that they knew that they knew that they knew when they were sitting in that seat that what they're seeing wasn't ours.
Right. And that's, you know, I think it's a disservice and a discredit to these people to tell them otherwise, to tell them that, you know, oh, you're just seeing, you know, high atmospheric test balloons, or that's a secret aircraft that we have. Well, if it's a secret aircraft, why isn't my flight path?
Right.
I mean, for real.
Why is it in my flight path? Why is it in my test range?
Yeah. Why is it flying over our base if that's a secret aircraft? What are you guys doing? Why are you doing that? You know, it's a good way to, you know, cause a really bad incident. You wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Don't be
It's
stupid.
a really easy way to cause loss of life.
It's an extremely easy way to cause loss of life. It's just not going to happen. And, you know, someone knows. If that's the case, then someone got a memo, and it didn't happen. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
So these lame excuses that we've been getting here for about a month now, if you notice, they kind of quit. Did you notice that? They said their piece, and now they backed away. And the other side's gearing up, I guess. So it's just push and shove that's happening right now. But yeah, man, there's just so much going on. It has been going on, though. The only difference that I found with these early cases, and it's a very, I think, an important difference, as in with this case, some of the early contact type experiences involve some very strange creatures, right? Think about that. They didn't want to be seen. This is what caused Keel and Valet to come up with their, you know, their theories that these things,
trickster.
The trickster elements, right? Particularly when Valet wrote Passport to Magonia, where he's talking about these mini masks that they can wear. Well, something changed. Because all of a sudden, somewhere around in the 1990s, mid 80s, whatever, they took off the mask and they revealed themselves as these not quite human things. And everyone thinks that's still a mask too, by the way. But it does seem that that particular face has now become synonymous with what these non-human intelligences actually look like, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of it. I got one. Hang on. It's down here on the floor. This is kind of what we're looking at. Something to this nature, right?
Yep.
It's kind of disturbing, I know, but that I can just pull this up out of the floor. But I did. So live with it. The point being is that this has now become the thing. And what's strange about that to me is that we don't get reports of these monster looking things anymore. These little
Yeah,
hairy
you don't
creatures.
get the weird Pascagoula style or
Flatwoods,
Flatwoods monster.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
Some of those ones in Italy, they were little troll-like things that were seen,
And
like
the Kentucky goblins.
and the goblins. Right. So with those cases, it seemed like something was definitely like, yeah, we're not ready to see this yet.
Yeah.
And of course, everyone says, well, that's because, this shape came out after everyone imagined what Betty and Barney had seen. But that's not what Betty and Barney had exactly seen. So I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, because what Betty and Barney's seen, like they described people more than anything.
I mean, they were little people, but big eyes,
Big eyes,
big heads, but they didn't look like that. They didn't have that.
They didn't look like the Greys.
Right, the Greys, exactly. They call them what they are because now they are what they are. They're the Greys, and they didn't look like that. So they blame Whitley, of course, for the definition of the Greys, but,
with communion.
Yeah, but the problem with that is, there are cave paintings that are thousands of years old
in Australia, in North America,
Australia, Central America, that look China, Japan,
China,
Thailand. I can go on.
Yeah,
but
they're everywhere.
They're over the world.
Everywhere except for really Egypt. The ones in Egypt looked a little bit more creepy.
Yeah.
The ones from Egypt were a little bit more Pascagoula-y.
They were, weren't they? It's almost like they didn't want to reveal themselves to those people.
Yeah.
So what changed? Why did it change? I think that's where we have to look at this, right? Because something has changed. We're not getting the, Michelin man with pointy ears, which is what they kind of remind me of, honestly.
It is. It's like the Michelin man with nails or spikes for a nose and ears.
Little pinchers for hands. But there's the pinchers for hands. Flatwoods, the secondary Flatwoods monster. I'd say that was the Frametown
incident.
Yeah, with the pinchers, right? And not only that, Hopkinsville, they were claw-like hands. What changed and why? So, there's a lot to really look at this case and say, okay, that happened, but what else happened? It's a cool story, right? Cool story, bro, but what else happened and why? Yeah. There's more data there.
There has to be.
Oh, there is.
You're looking at so much in the modern era that has changed with ufology. And just in the last 6 or 8 months with what Gary Nolan and Kit Green and everybody has talked about, you've got so many more experiences that have been validated because of these guys. We have, not only now looking at because Pascagoula was referenced by Gary Nolan, but Gary also referenced Rendlesham.
Yeah.
And validated Rendlesham because we found out that the VA finally started covering that guy's bills after years.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you do with that information in the modern day? Do you class it, so to speak, and do you just dismiss it and say, oh well, it didn't happen, or do you accept it and say, oh man, what are we dealing with? What are we dealing with here? Because how many of these UFO reports that we've looked at and just blown off? And I'm not talking about people who are in the community.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about UFO researchers or cryptid enthusiasts and all that, because, they eat this stuff up. This is why they're listening to Wild and Weird Radio.
Right.
But the outside community, at what point are they going to start taking a slightly more serious look at some of the cases like Betty and Bernie Hill?
Yeah.
Or Travis Walton?
Right.
You know, and I think it's one of the most unfortunate things that Travis Walton's experience was made into a movie.
Right.
Because he sci-fi'd it.
Yeah, and he'll tell you the same thing. It wasn't the way that it should have been portrayed. That was not what happened exactly, and then they get on to Travis because your story changed over the years. Well, his story didn't change. His perspective changed.
Yeah.
That's what changed. His perspective on the story changed. He once thought that they were trying to harm him, and now today, if you talk to the man, he will tell you point blank, they were not trying to harm me. They were trying to help me because I was an idiot and I got in their beam and, radiation exposure, whatever. And he thinks that it killed him. He thinks that it killed him and they were, trying to bring him back and basically resuscitated him. And that's very possible at this point, knowing what we know about close proximity to UAPs.
Yeah. We know that, but we also know what it's like for people who have a near-death experience or die and are brought back. We know that comeback moment isn't peaceful. Nobody's like, oh, I'm back. And they're like, oh, thank goodness. I'm all right. Let's go get dinner. No, it's like kicking and screaming. It's like you're getting born again. You come back the same way you came in and you're just, wah! And imagine having that experience, being surrounded by entities. You come awake, and you're surrounded by these things that definitely aren't human, and you think you've gone to hell.
Yeah. Well, he was going to fight his way out because he grabbed the first thing he could and started swinging around and trying to take him out. And, I always joked and said somewhere on board an alien spacecraft is a sign with Travis's picture that says, avoid this encounter, but yeah,
like a stick man with a tool or
like
something.
things to avoid,
Make sure this is the warning to make sure that the restraints are tight.
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure he's a legend up there. But like I said, people change, and their story doesn't. But their interpretation of their story may change. There's nothing wrong with that. With age comes wisdom, so to speak. With age comes data, and with data comes new perspective. And that's a good thing, in my opinion. I don't like it when someone says, oh, Betty and Barney Hill, that's this. Really? Yeah. What about this? Oh, no, it's this. It can only be this. It can't ever be anything else but this. I told you what it was. It's this. Why are you questioning me? That's what you get with some of these people. Well, I'm questioning you because there's new data. And if you can't look at the new data and incorporate it into your old data set, then you're probably not as trustworthy as you think you should be.
Yeah.
So
now, sadly, Parker is recently passed.
Oh, they're both gone now.
Yep, they're both gone. But Parker passed away. I think it was last year.
Yeah, I think it was.
Mm-hmm. And he had finally come to grips with his encounter, and he himself was starting to go around and show up at some of these UFO conferences and kind of just accepting his place in the community and accepting that what happened to him has happened to many others.
Yeah.
And he found community. Yep. That's one of the best things I think that could have happened with him in his final years there. Was that he found a sense of community, that he wasn't the only one. Yeah. And it's really important for you guys that if you're listening and you've had an experience, to find that community that you can be a part of. And that's something that we've strived to create, is a community that is open and welcome to experiencers of all kinds, Bigfoot, UFO, contactees, anything, and give you a place where you can come and not be the odd man out, and no longer have to walk around alone or with this dark cloud over your head of you trying to hide your experience from the world and whatnot. And but that's what we've tried to create. And it was really great that Parker was able to find that and was able to go around. And he went to, I think the first Alien Con with Giorgio and all those guys. And he wasn't a guest. He was just a guy there walking around, he's like one of us. And he was able to kind of just enjoy it and have the experience and made friends and all that stuff. And he did become more comfortable with telling the story in more recent years, rather than trying to hide and run from it. And I personally say become more comfortable with telling your story. Earlier the better, because you can help people.
Yeah, it's been
There's other people who are having encounters who don't know what to make of them. Hearing your story might make a massive change for somebody.
Yeah, it's about validation, just like I've said multiple times at this point. And the more that you can tell, the dominoes fall. One person tells a story, and especially if it sounds remotely similar to something that they experienced, you'll see the cold chill moment, and then they'll, suddenly you may be best friends just like that. And,
yeah,
you may have not even known each other 5 minutes before. Happens all the time.
Yeah, and we've watched it happen right in front of us.
Yeah, it's happened all the time.
So, in today's era, don't be afraid to share your story. And we could be the place that you share that story if you wanted to. I don't necessarily mean here on Wild and Weird Radio. I just, you can share your story with us. You can see us at a show and we can have the conversation. And
happens.
You can
all the
shoot
time.
us an email. You can get a hold of us on Facebook. We're accessible. And I think that more now than ever to remind you guys that we're always going to be accessible.
Yeah, absolutely. So anytime you see us out at the show, approach, come over, say hi. We don't bite.
I mean,
and tell your story. No.
we don't bite all the time.
As long as he's, got food, he's good. But but come over, tell your story like everybody else does. I mean, you're not bothering us. I know a lot of people think that they are. We've even heard that multiple times at the shows.
Yeah, we have.
And we're busy. So what? We'll make time. It's what we do. And if we're extremely busy, we'll say, hey, come back here in 5-10 minutes or whatever, or maybe even come back this evening and we'll go hang out over there and grab a burrito or something.
Right.
That's happened before.
And we've even said, okay, we're really busy, real quick, just come back here, sit here.
Yeah.
Take a seat.
We'll get to you in a minute.
As soon as we get done, we will, and we invite people back behind our booth regularly.
It happens.
And the importance of these validations, it's so, I mean, look at these guys. Look at what they went through for, from the 70s up until the late 90s into the early 2000s or early 2010s.
Yeah.
What Parker was dealing with. And, they held on to that for a lifetime.
Yep. It happens all the time, man. It's not.
And man, it's just, it's nuts. It's nuts.
It absolutely is.
And you guys don't have to do that.
Yep.
Not today. Not in a post-disclosure world. You don't have to do that. You can share your story.
Unless you sign some NDA, I guess.
Right. Unless you sign some NDA with the Men in Black.
Right. Exactly. Don't break that.
Which, I mean, I'm not going to say that never happens.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's a whole different story.
Yeah.
But it's a whole different episode right there. But yeah, man, there's some crazy stuff out there that's going on. And we have to look at a lot of these older cases. Just a little different now with this, these in these times, in this post-disclosure world, And,
this is the number 2 in the post-disclosure series. We have another one that we're going to release here in, probably a month or so. And that's going to be our reassessment of the Kentucky Goblins.
Yeah, that's a fascinating case for anyone who's not familiar with it. And I've seen it make it'll make a page every now and again. Somebody will, throw it up on one of the Facebook groups or something, and someone invariably always makes fun of it and says, oh wow, they're just drinking or moonshine or whatever. Nah, they weren't. I'm going to tell you guys what.
You're not drinking moonshine and calling the cops at the same time.
You're not going to do that. Trust me, it's not going to happen.
Not in Kentucky.
You're not going to pack up a vehicle, drive drunk with your whole family, including your kids, to the police station. That's not going to happen, guys. That's not going to happen. Trust me. So, before we, go any deeper into that, that's just some of the criticism that I've seen that we can just shoot away right now because that didn't happen. But what did happen is some really weird stuff out there. Yep. And it kind of makes sense with this whole non-human intelligence thing, possible screen images kind of thing. And why I bring that up is, again, you brought up Gary Nolan, and Gary's the one who talked about, the case in, I think it was France, it may have been, where, the car's driving along and, this lady in the back seat, she sees this massive flying saucer over top of the vehicle. And so someone else has a cell phone and takes, the cell phone and takes a picture of what's above them, and there's a little spot of light, a little orb, just directly above. So it's something that is coming from that orb that is affecting the perception of the witness. That's where I think a lot of these stranger cases come from. Perception.
Yep.
So
I would agree, especially with all the modern data that's out there. I honestly, without what Gary Nolan has published, I don't think we would be doing and having these kind of conversations where we're at today.
Well, no, because it was all made fun of, nonsense, speculation, science fiction. You're talking about shapeshifters. Well, we kind of are, but we're not.
Yeah.
We just gave new life to shapeshifters. They're not literal shapeshifters. They're perceptual shapeshifters.
Right.
You see, if I can make you think that I look like this, what an incredible camouflage.
Yeah.
That is. Man, wouldn't that be nice to have?
Oh, yeah.
Think about that. Mm-hmm.
That would be one of those things where, like, if you had that, you could just go out into the forest and you're a tree.
Think about that. Think about that. You're a tree. You don't see me. I'm a tree.
Yep.
Where did sound come from? Nothing up there but trees.
Right.
I see trees.
But it is a fascinating case, and with everything that's out today, I say that Pascagoula, everything that happened with Pascagoula and the way it went down, the way it was treated at first was unjust, and now in the modern day, looking back, it's unfortunate that these two gentlemen have passed, because now their case is even more credible today than it was when it first came out.
Absolutely.
There's so much more data that is accessible to be able to review this case that it's not irrefutable, but it makes sense. There's things that happen to them that, like, oh, well, yeah, this is what Kit Green talked about in this paper, or this is what Joseph McGonigal was writing about in this paper, and here's what Gary Nolan was writing about in this paper. And if you put all this stuff together, look. Some of these things come together and they make sense.
Yeah, it's not all a bunch of conspiracy nonsense anymore, is it?
No.
That's the thing, you see. So,
well, the thing about conspiracy, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not a lot of these conspiracy things that I can't get behind, but the fact of the matter is, real, true conspiracies that are factual conspiracies, the only difference between a conspiracy and a fact is about 6 months to a year, sometimes 80.
Yeah.
Sometimes 80 years.
Never know.
In the case of the UFO phenomena.
Right.
But time is the difference between conspiracy and fact.
Seems to be.
For real conspiracies. Then a lot of the other conspiracies are like,
yeah. Well, those
The
are
world's not going to end with an eclipse coming up here, guys.
Oh my God. Don't even do this.
That's the current one that's really just irking
don't
me.
do this.
It's bugging me so bad, man. Like
I can't talk about it. I can't talk about it because I'll get in a bad mood. I don't want to get in a bad mood.
Well, man. So final thoughts. Let's round this out. Final thoughts.
It happened. It happened the way that they perceived it happened. They reported it the only way that they could report it, which is the only way that, again, they perceived it, right? So they were being honest in their own minds. Now, was that exactly what they saw? Like, if you or me were there, is that what we would have seen?
Right.
Maybe not. Maybe not. But did everything that they say happen the way it did? In their minds, absolutely 100% it did. And did it affect them physically? Yep. Whatever it was, it did. Because I do believe that was a interaction with a non-human intelligence of some sort.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that they had contact with non-human intelligence, and clearly that, according to both of them, they had continued contact throughout the years, periodic, and I don't have any reason to disbelieve those accounts at this point based off of current data that's out there. And the data, follow the data.
Yep.
It's real data. It's not make believe. It's a lot of it's published, and not just by self-publishing, but PhDs and universities and government entities. So, yeah, if you have had an encounter that you would like to share, you can head on over to wildandweirdwv.com, click the report a sighting. You can share that encounter with us. A brief questionnaire followed up by a description of the account that happened to you, and we'll be back in touch with you. If you'd like to support Wild and Weird Radio and keep it free for eons and eons to come, all you have to do is head on over to YouTube, search Wild and Weird WV, hit the subscribe button, go like a couple of the videos, leave some comments here and there. That's the best way to support us. We also have a fantastic team of executive producers and super chatters that back this show and keep it free for everybody. No Patreons, no subscriptions, none of this stuff. Like, we don't, I make my own coffee. I don't need anybody to buy me some. You guys are great. You're fantastic. They're scrolling right now on the bottom of this page, and this page, or this scroller, only gets longer and longer every week. And we thank every one of you guys so much. And the value that you guys bring to this show is fantastic, because these guys that you see scrolling below are engaged every week in conversation. They're what drive Wild and Weird Radio live and keep the conversation moving forward for new people to come and join this community that we've helped create. We keep this stuff moving for you guys. And if you have never experienced Wild and Weird Radio live, do it. Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern. We go live. We have an absolute ball. It is completely a show that is driven by the listeners. It is a show that is for the listeners. And we have an absolute ball doing it and hanging out with you guys. It's the highlight of our week. And several of our folks, it is the highlight of their week. I'm not just speaking for them. They literally, when they come on, it's first things they say, it's finally Thursday. And that's what we're like. It's like Thursday, Wild and Weird Radio live.
Yeah. Thursday has become almost like 5 o'clock to some people. It's just like, well, it's party time. And it really is. It's like Thursday it's like the day before Friday. And they get to hang out with us and have some fun and celebrate. And then Friday happens. And sometimes,
maybe.
Yeah, boom, like that. And Friday we have our
celebration for the weekend.
Well, Friday we have our show, the recorded show. So they get us 2 days a week right there. Boom, we lead you right into the weekend. And sometimes Spooky Appalachia is right there with us too. And then it's like that's a lot of weird stuff.
Spooky weird weekend extravaganza.
Yeah, that's right. It's
like TGIF, but stranger.
It's very strange.
So, guys, check us out every Thursday at 8 p.m. and come hang out with us at the kickoff of every episode that's recorded on Friday, also at 8 p.m. And when you're out and about, look around. You never know. We might be there. Maybe the Men in Black are there. Probably the Men in Black are there.
Probably.
But you can always catch us right here. We got a ton of backlog too. I think at this point you can go back and listen to our show for like several days.
Several years. Yeah.
So everybody, you guys are awesome. We appreciate everybody. Remember, sweet potatoes aren't really potatoes, but the Men in Black are probably watching you right now. Stay wild and weird, everybody.
Yeah.